trong nam la chan chu pa du da king dak su chi da king chu king ki de so nam ki dro la pen chir san ke tru pa sho.
And so let's have some time of silent meditation. Your mind relaxed, focusing on one object, listening to your breath, perhaps contemplate the four immeasurables, or think about the teachings that you've heard in the last few days. comes with us, and it's only the good karma that we create, the good mental habits we cultivate that are going to benefit us at the time of death. So let's learn the techniques to do this, to cultivate our mind, purify our mind, and recall that we're doing this process of purification and cultivation, not simply for our own benefit and welfare, but so that we'll have the wisdom, compassion, and skillful means to be able to benefit each and every living being most effectively in the short term and in the long term. Let's have this very far-reaching aspiration and know that we're here tonight to put one more drop in the bucket of learning how to do this. And then open your eyes. Okay, so, again, if anybody wants to move their seats so you can see better, please feel free to do it. Okay, so we're going to talk about the four seals this evening, and then we'll see how far we get, and then hopefully tomorrow evening go back to the Heart Sutra as an expanded version of teaching about the third and fourth seal. But we'll see. Okay? So the four seals, it comes from, oh no, I can't remember. It's either the Tenbumi Sutra or it's the Lankavatara Sutra. I can't remember. But it comes, the four seals come out of one of the Mahayana Sutras. Maybe I have it in here. Let's see. And come on. It's giving me the chance to practice. Have the name of this. Come on. Cooperate, please. It's from the King of Concentration Sutra, the Samadhi Raja Sutra, which is a beautiful sutra. Sometimes you find quotes from the sutra that talk about how phenomena exist, and it's like poetry. The King of Concentration Sutra is just beautiful. Anyway, it's a Mahayana Sutra, and the four seals come from it. So these four seals are four characteristics that are shared by all of the Buddhist traditions. Okay, so we may have many similar, tenets. We may have many different tenets, but these are four that are similar, even though sometimes they're interpreted in different ways. Okay, so it's said that any system that has these four tenets are
is a Buddhist system. Okay? So this is how you can decide whether something is the Buddha's teaching or not the Buddha's teaching. Okay? So these four tenets are first that all all conditioned phenomena are impermanent or transient. Second, that all polluted, or sometimes it's translated as contaminated, phenomena are unsatisfactory, or the Sanskrit and Tibetan word is dukkha. Sometimes it's translated as suffering, but suffering is not a good translation. Yeah. Because suffering, we say, well, what is this suffering? We're not suffering all the time. Yeah. We feel happy and everything. But is everything satisfactory when you look at it in the big picture? No, it's not all satisfactory. So that's why I think actually translating the term dukkha as suffering is really quite misleading, because it makes people think only physical suffering, and that's not. So I sometimes will just say dukkha. It means unsatisfactory. Okay, it's another word that you have to get used to from another language. Then the third one is that all phenomena are empty and selfless. And the fourth is that nirvana is peace. Okay, so any system that accepts these four, then we can say is a Buddhist system. So, all the different types of Buddhism in the different countries that have, practice in, a whole variety of ways, and may have, some similar and some different beliefs, everybody accepts these four. Okay, so let's look at them in a little bit more depth. Okay, so the first one, all conditioned things are impermanent or transient. So impermanent here means, it means changing moment by moment, momentarily changing. So sometimes we get things confused. We think of permanent as meaning eternal and never ending, and impermanent as something that kind of has a limited existence. That's not the meaning here in Buddhism. Okay? Here in Buddhism, permanent means it does not change moment by moment. It does not mean that it's eternal, because there can be some things that only exist for a short while, but while they exist, they don't change moment by moment. Okay, for example, the emptiness of our friend the rose. Okay, the emptiness of the rose, the lack of inherent existence of the rose, lasts only as long as the rose does. Because you can't talk about the lack of inherent existence of the rose if there's no rose. Okay, so the emptiness is permanent. It doesn't change moment by moment due to causes and conditions, but it is not eternal. Okay, whereas there's other things that are permanent, that are eternal. For example, empty space. Yeah. Empty space, meaning the lack of obstructability and tangibility, that's always there, it never changes, and it never disappears. Okay? So with impermanent, some impermanent things are eternal, some are not eternal. Or some permanent things are eternal, some are not eternal. Okay, you with me? Then regarding impermanent means that something is changing moment by moment. Yeah. In other words, at the same time it is arising and coming into being, it is also disappearing and going out of existence. We often think that arising, or sometimes they call it production, but actually it's more emphasizing arising, what the result is doing. The result is arising. that arising, yeah, we usually think things arise and then they abide for a while without changing. And then it decays. That's how we usually think of things like that. Okay? Is that actually what's happening with the rose? That it comes into being and then it stays the same for a while without changing, and then it decays? No. No. The rose, from the time it's arising, it's already in the process of decaying. Okay? So it's arising and decaying actually at the same time. Yeah? So that's talking about momentary impermanence. Okay? So some things that are impermanent are eternal. They never go out of existence. For example, the consciousness, our mind. Yeah? It never goes out of existence. It's eternal because one moment of mind produces the next moment of mind. But it also changes moment by moment because it's something produced by causes and conditions. Okay? So the mind is impermanent and eternal. Then there's other things that are impermanent and not eternal, like the rose. Okay? The rose is changing moment by moment, but it doesn't last forever. Okay? Or like our body. It's a good example too. Yeah, it's changing moment by moment, but it doesn't last forever. So these are some concepts that it's really helpful, and some vocabulary that it's really helpful to try and remember, because as you advance in your Buddhist studies, you will come across these terms again and again and again, especially permanent and impermanent. And if you're thinking about them according to the usual English meaning, then you'll get very confused. So you have to remember the Buddhist meaning here. Okay. Now, when we're talking about impermanent, changing moment by moment by moment, okay, there's actually two levels of impermanence. The subtle level of impermanence is that one that's changing momentarily. There's also the gross level of impermanence, like the flower dying. Okay? So for gross impermanence, we don't need reasoning, we don't need anything fancy to know it exists, because we can see with our eyes things going out of existence. Okay? We can see people dying, we can see, the rose disintegrating from one day to the next. Yeah, we can't see it from moment by moment, but we can see it one day to the next. We can see a house fall down. Yeah, I was in Kathmandu when I saw a house fall down. Yeah, it was pretty impressive. I wouldn't want to see that a lot though. It was like, and then there was just dust. Anyway, so there's the gross impermanence and the subtle impermanence. Okay? So the gross one we see with our eyes. The subtle one, we don't see with our eyes. We can only know that one through the process of using reasoning. Okay? Through the process of really reflecting on things. In other words, for example, for the gross impermanence to occur, there has to be the subtle impermanence of something changing moment by moment. Okay? For the flower to decay, it's not that you have the bud and then it stays the same and then all of a sudden it goes out of existence, it decays. In order to get from the bud to the decaying flower, yeah, it has to be changing each nanosecond, never remaining the same. So it's kind of like, the sun arises and then the sun sets. Yeah, for the sun, to arise and then set, there has to be a process of it changing and moving across the sky in each split second. Or should I say, there has to be the process of the earth turning in each split second so that it makes it look like the sun is moving across the sky. Okay? So gross impermanence, exists depending on the subtle impermanence. To know the subtle impermanence, we need reasoning. And so the usual reason, if you make a syllogism, the rose or my body or whatever it is impermanent because it's a product of causes and conditions. Okay? In other words, anything that arises due to causes and conditions is changing momentarily. Okay? Now that's something to sit with and really think about. Okay? Because when we're alive, we feel like I'm here, right? I'm here. Death, long time in the future. Long time in the future. Now I'm kind of permanent. It's like, maybe for the first 18 years of my life I was changing, but then from 18 until, well, it depends how old you are. Yeah, if you're in your 40s, then you think, when I'm 58, then the change will start. When you're in your 50s, it's when I'm 60. When you're in your 60s, it's, notice how the definition of old changes? I remember in my 20s where I had a friend who was 40, and I thought, wow, this friend is 40, she's really old. Right now, I think 40, you're still a kid. Definition of old changes. Don't you think? Isn't that your experience? Yeah? Okay. So, kind of like from 18 to maybe 78. You're the same. You're an adult. Yeah. And since this longer lifespans, maybe 82, So from 18 until 82, you're the same. And then you start to get old. That's how we think of it. Yeah? Do you feel your age?
No.
I don't feel my age. I still feel like I have my whole life in front of me. And I'm 63, and it's like, here, you do not have your whole life in front of you. You have the rest of your life in front of you. But, yeah, it's way more than half over, even if you're lucky and live a long time and, spend your, how many years at the end, going good. I always told people my seed syllable was duh. So if I live to be 100, I'm gonna be going duh. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So we feel like we're kind of permanent and stable, but we're not, are we? Even from 18 to 19, we're changing. Even from 78 to 79, we're changing. Yeah. Every single instant. So when you sit with that, yeah, and you sit with that, I am impermanent because of being a product of causes and conditions. Does it make you feel a little bit weird? First feeling, I am a product of causes and conditions. Do you ever think of yourself as a product of causes and conditions? Never. I'm here. Permanent. Right? Me. there's a permanent me inside here, somewhere, some soul, Atma, and something, that some me that is there that never changes. We often feel that, don't we? There's me. Okay, I'm not produced by causes and conditions. The rose is, the tablecloth is, kind of maybe my hair is produced by causes and conditions, but me, no. Because if I'm produced by causes and conditions, it means I only exist because the causes and conditions for me exist. And if the causes and conditions for me to exist don't exist, I don't exist. So with that one for a while. Yeah? Does it make you feel weird? I only exist because the causes and conditions for me exist. In other words, I am not a given in this universe. I am something simply that arose simply like the rose arose because of causes and conditions, not because I'm a given, stable, independent entity. Okay? So not only am I produced by causes and conditions, but because I'm produced by causes and conditions, I'm also changing moment by moment by moment. So there's no stable, permanent thing that is me. Even our body, changing moment by moment, isn't it? Yeah. Our mind, changing moment by moment. Nothing about us is stable and enduring. Nothing about us endures. Not even until the next moment. That's pretty strong, isn't it? Yeah? When I sit and think about it, it's like, whoa, this does not fit into my self-image. And yet I know it's true. Which means my self-image is false. Yeah. That the way I think about myself is wrong. Remember I mentioned the other day that if you're going to practice the Dharma, you have to get used to being wrong? Here is a very good example of it. Our whole notion of who we are is completely inaccurate. Yeah? This feeling like there's a stable me that doesn't change, that is a given in the universe. It's not a given. It's only there because there's causes and conditions. And it's not stable because it's changing. Because everything about us is changing. This. We're not the same the next moment. Okay? So our whole view of ourselves really needs a lot of revamping here to get back in tune with reality. When we start thinking about things like this, that we are changing moment by moment, and everything around us is changing by moment by moment, our whole feeling of existing in the world is very different. Yeah. And it makes us wonder, why do I hold on to things so tightly? If I'm changing momentarily, and everything around me is changing momentarily, what use is it trying to hold on to things? Okay. In other words, what use is my attachment? What use is my clinging? Is my attachment in line with reality or not? Yeah. So if our friend the rose, it looks different tonight than it did the first night, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it definitely looks different. All of them look very different. They're older. They're older. They're more open. Yeah. Now they look fully mature. Tomorrow night, who knows what they'll look like. Okay, but definitely different than the first night. And you can see they're starting to get a little bit old around the edges. Okay, but if I'm changing moment by moment, and the rose is changing moment by moment, does it make much sense to try and hold on to this rose as mine? As the thing that I'm going to have to make me happy? Yeah? What do you think? Does it make much sense to be attached to this rose? It doesn't. And you know, if I'm attached to this rose, oh, this rose is so beautiful, it's so gorgeous. I love this rose. Then, when this rose, definitely by the end of the week, it's going to be gone, okay? Then, when this rose is all wilted, then how am I going to feel? If this rose was the thing bringing me true happiness. Yeah, at the end of the week, I'm going to feel really down. So my happiness now, at, oh, I'm with my precious rose, is a setup for great suffering later on. Because the more I cling to something now, the harder it's going to be when I have to separate from it. Okay? This is why they say that attachment or clinging or craving is a disturbing emotion. Yeah. It disturbs the mind. Okay. It disturbs the mind first because I want, and there's this feeling of perpetual dissatisfaction. Then when we get it, it disturbs the mind because it's a setup for suffering, the suffering of separation. Because anything that comes together cannot stay together. Remember, everything's changing moment by moment. The moment me and my rose come together, we are heading towards separating. There's no way for me and my rose to always be together. Because it's going to die, and I'm going to die. And before either one of us die, you might take my rose, and then I'm going to be separated from it. Or I might lose my rose. Okay? So the mind that clings onto transient things is not a trustworthy, reliable mind. Yeah? It's not a mind that is going to bring us happiness in the long run. It may appear to bring us a lot of happiness now. When we really like someone or we really like something, the more we're together with them, oh, I'm so happy. I'm so satisfied. It's so good. Yeah. But that, and when we feel that way, we think that happiness is going to continue to last and never decline. But since that happiness is dependent upon the existence of something else that is changing moment by moment, there's no way that happiness is going to last forever. Because the object it's dependent upon is not going to last forever. And my relationship with that object or with that person is not going to last forever. Okay? So when we think about this really deeply, just about the impermanent nature of ourselves and of everybody around us and everything around us, it really changes how we relate to the world. it does not mean that then we withdraw from the world and say, well, it's all impermanent and changing, so I'm not going to get involved with anything. That's the wrong conclusion. Okay? It's everything is changing. So when I'm involved with things, I should be aware of that and not get attached to them. And be aware that I'm changing, they're changing, the situation is changing. And in that way, when we aren't so attached to things, actually our mind is a lot more peaceful. It's not that detachment makes or the lack of attachment, it's not that makes your mind flat. It makes your mind peaceful because you aren't always disturbed by, I want, because you know there's no long-term benefit from getting. So why stay in that state of dissatisfaction of wanting? Because that mind of wanting is quite painful, isn't it? You know, when we're wanting, our problem is not that we're not getting what we want. Our problem is the intensity of that wanting. That wanting mind itself is quite unsatisfactory. And don't you think, when you're really wanting something, is your mind peaceful and tranquil? Hardly. Yeah? You're sitting there daydreaming, oh, this is so good. I want this. How can I get it? Yeah. So the mind's thinking and planning, how can I get what I want? So then sometimes the mind, it goes off, oh, I've got what I want, but how am I going to keep it? And then as soon as you get what you want, fear sets in of how am I going to keep it? How can I prevent separating from it? So anxiety comes. Yeah? Okay. So actually, with anxiety, we can see anxiety comes before we get something, because we're anxious about, am I going to really get it? And anxiety comes after we get it, because can I keep it? Okay. Anxiety is no fun. Okay? If we realize that because we're changing momentarily and the object or other person or situation, whatever it is changing momentarily, then we don't grasp onto these things so intensely. It would be nice if I have this, but if I don't, it's okay. Yeah. That mind is a lot more peaceful, isn't it? Yeah. It would be nice if I could see that person, but if I don't, it's okay. It'd be nice if I could have that, but if I don't, it's okay. Yeah. And then even you get it, oh, I have this, well, that's nice, but I'm going to lose it, so I'm not going to, hold on to it. Then the mind is so much more relaxed. It's funny how we are. When it comes to relationships with people, we often think that unless we are totally devastated when we're separated from them, that we never really cared about them. Yeah. It's kind of like, okay, if you really love somebody, then if they die, you've got to be totally, or else you never really love them. Yeah, I mean, don't you think that's kind of the way we're brought up to feel? But is that true? Is that true? The degree to which you're devastated when somebody dies corresponds to the degree to which you're attached to them, not the degree to which you love them. Okay. But the degree to which you're going, I need to be with this person And that is very different than love. Love is wanting somebody to have happiness and the causes of happiness. That's it. I remember when my niece was a little girl, we were writing letters together, and she thought, I miss you meant the same thing as I love you. That those two things were synonymous. In other words, if you love somebody, you have to miss them. Okay? Again, that's what many people think in the world. I mean, she was only maybe 5 years old at the time. She already thought that, you know? Conditioning starts early. But do you have to, does missing somebody, is that really an indication that you love somebody? Yeah. But remember, love is, I want you to have happiness and its causes. Do you have to miss them in order to want them to have happiness and its causes? No. Why do we miss people? I want. Yeah. Okay. And again, like I said, that is a setup for suffering. Because as soon as we're attached to something that we cannot possibly forever stay with. Yeah? So separation is going to come. And the more we hold like this, you know, when it comes time for somebody to die, either us or the other person, yeah, again, you stop death from coming? No way. No way. When death is knocking at our door, surrender, because death is going to win. You know? Because from the moment we were conceived in our mother's womb, we are in the process of going towards death. It's not that we were young and we were young and young and young and growing, everything getting better, and then some external factor comes in and cuts off our lifetime. It's not like that. But from the moment after we're conceived in our mother's womb, we are going moment by moment towards death. True, isn't it? Totally true. We make lots of plans in our life for things that are never certain to happen. Death, which is certain to happen, is something that most people never make plans for. Yeah. And by making plans, I don't mean, you know, orchestrating your death. When I die, I want to be in this bed with these people around me and this and this and this. You think you can control all of that? No, forget that one. Okay. So by plan for our death, I don't mean orchestrate it. I mean plan what to do with our mind. What are you going to do with your mind when you're dying? Have you ever thought about that? What am I going to do with my mind when I die? Yeah. Am I going to, you know, have I never thought about it? Am I just going to wing it? Yeah? Or am I going to try and, you know, clutch onto things? Or am I going to hold all those grudges and then the moment before I die, then I'm going to forgive people? Yeah? I'm going to plan it. I hate you. You know, I hate you because you did this to me. I hate you. The moment before I die, okay, I'll forgive you, and then we're gone. Yeah, do you think you can plan it out that way? I need to apologize to somebody, we were talking about this on Saturday, I'm not going to apologize, I'm not going to apologize. Maybe the moment before I die, then do it and go, because then my pride won't get in the way. Yeah, is that going to work? Yeah. So this meditation on impermanence is quite profound, you know. It really makes us reassess our lives and set our priorities very well. You know, you had asked me to teach over the weekend from chapter 6 of Aryadeva's text. I never got to it. But chapter 1 of Aryadeva's text is the text called the 400. It's about impermanence. Okay? Beautiful text. I mean, Aryadeva is really exquisite. And many years ago, I was studying this text with my teacher, Geshe Nalan Darge. And every afternoon, when we were going through chapter 1, he would be teaching about death and impermanence, you know. And every evening, I would go back and I would meditate on what he had taught, really contemplating it, integrating it into my life. And when I look back now, those days when I was meditating on death every day were some of the days when my mind was the most peaceful and most calm. Yeah, that meditating on death can make your mind very peaceful and calm if you meditate correctly. Because we realize that most of the things that make us agitated are not worth getting agitated about. When you think about the fact that we're going to die and what's important for us at the time of death, most of the things we get wigged out about day to day are not important. Okay. Everybody had some problems today, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have problems every day. You had some problems today? The problems you had today, do you want to be thinking about them when you die? No. So why worry about them today? Do you remember the problems that you had on March 31st, 2013, 1 year ago? No. But you know that on March 31, 2013, you were anxious and worried and frustrated about something. Because it's like that every day. But do you worry, but can you even remember what your problem was today? Probably not. And yet, how much energy do we spend on a daily basis ruminating, going round and around and around about things that we can't remember a year later and that we definitely don't want to be thinking about when we die? And yet we spend our whole life, so much time each day, thinking about these small things. Yeah. When you think about it, it's really a huge waste of time. Yeah. We waste so much time on small things. When my teacher was teaching this chapter, the person living next door to me liked to play her radio at night. Usually, you know, you're trying to meditate and somebody's playing their radio. But it's like I didn't even bother to get angry because I realized that getting angry at her playing the radio was a total waste of my time and energy. Yeah? And so my mind stayed actually quite peaceful, even though she was doing something that normally I would be quite, really unhappy about. Okay. Now think about all the times we have hurt feelings. Do your feelings get hurt?
Never.
No.
Never.
Oh, yeah, we'll see. Do you want me to try? We can have a little experiment and see if your feelings get hurt or not. But when our feelings are hurt, how much time and energy do we spend, contemplating that situation that hurt our feelings? Yeah. Which most often is a misunderstanding. It's not like somebody else woke up that morning and said, oh, I've got it for today. I'm going to hurt their feelings. It's like people just do things. I don't think they intentionally, hurt our feelings. But we go, you hurt my feelings. Like the other day, you made me angry.
Yep.
Yeah? Nobody makes us angry. Nobody hurts our feelings. We hurt our own feelings. But we go, oh, you hurt my feelings. Ah, my feelings are so hurt. Oh, terrible, terrible, terrible. You did it, and it means this, terrible, terrible. And it means that. And you're always doing it, and other people are always doing it. And why is it me? And people are picking on me. And they don't realize that I'm such a wonderful, splendid, honest, lovable person, and they should all love me. Ah! Right? I know this very good. Well, when I was a little girl, my mother used to call me Sarah Bernhardt. Yeah? I never, Mom, who's singing? Who's Sarah Bernhardt? When I finally learned, I realized, she was trying to get across. Because everything was a drama. Yeah. Overemphasized, incredibly terrible. Yeah? And we can really get into our emotions like that, can't we? And stay stuck like that for days and weeks and months. Waiting for somebody in the world to change the world so that my anguish goes away. It's exhausting. And when you look at it, what in the world is a hurt feeling? Yeah? Step back and ask yourself, because we always say my feelings got hurt. What is a hurt feeling? First of all, there was some sense data. Maybe some voice, some sound came, or maybe some colors and shape came. We gave meaning to the sound. We imputed motivations on the person who said the sound. We took the meaning of the sound and went like this. The color and shape of the people who were seeing things, we interpreted it in a certain way. That look on their face, oh, I see that look, what do they mean? So it's just sense data that then our mind, takes. Maybe there's like a slight unpleasant feeling when we first have the sense data, but then our mind does this whole incredible creative writing story drama about the sense data, and the conclusion is, my feelings are hurt. That's all it is some outside stimulus, a little bit of unpleasant feeling, and then a huge amount of conceptual mind. Yeah, writing the drama, starring me. When you start to look at that mechanism and how it functions in your mind, and then you put that next to the thing of every single moment from the moment after the time I'm conceived, I am in the process of dying and going towards death. Is writing that drama, getting involved in that drama, something you want to spend your time on? Yeah? No. Are our hurt feelings really such a big deal? Yeah? That we have to go to the other person and have this huge thing with them and get the whole family involved or get the whole office involved or go to our boss or go to, whoever it is. Is it really that important? Yeah. I mean, what is our time valuable for when at the time of death, the only thing that comes with us is our karma and our mental habits? And here I am, I'm setting up a very strong mental habit of drama, all about me, of self-pity, resentment, anger. I'm ingraining that habit deeper and deeper in my mind because I think you hurt my feelings. And that's what I'm cultivating to take with me when I die. Is that going to help me? Yeah. What about if at the time of death, I go, because that mental state is so familiar to me? What about at the time I'm dying, I get into the mental state of you hurt my feelings? Can you imagine you're dying and what you're thinking about is you hurt my feelings? It's painful even to think about dying in that way, isn't it? So if we don't want to die like that, why spend so much time of our life making that a habit? Yeah. If we want to die with a mind that says, I feel fulfilled, yeah, my life wasn't perfect, but I feel fulfilled. I feel like I did something beneficial for the world. I feel like I improved myself. I created some merit. I did some purification. I feel content with that. And I really want to die with a very strong intention to be born in a place where I can meet the Dharma when I'm little, where I can have all the good, conducive conditions to be able to practice, where I can meet qualified teachers and myself be interested in the Dharma and have faith and generate bodhicitta and receive teachings on emptiness and meditate on emptiness and really progress along the path in future lives. I want to die with that kind of aspiration for my future life. Then are we going to be able to generate that aspiration right before we die if we haven't practiced thinking like that our entire life? No. Yeah. So we have to look at what habits am I imprinting in my mind on a day-to-day basis. Because we are creatures of habit, and that's what will ripen at death, and that's what will ripen after death. So when our mind starts getting wigged out about some stupid agio, we have to stop and say, that is a mental fabrication. Yeah. What I really want my mind to be on is I want to understand impermanence. I want to understand the emptiness of true existence. I want to generate bodhicitta. I want to take strong refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Let's steer my mind towards those things. Because that's really what I want to inculcate in my being while I have this opportunity. opportunity right now. Whether somebody hurts my feelings or not, you know, it's like, where am I ever going to go in this entire universe where nobody's going to hurt my feelings? You know, as long as I have big red buttons, somebody's going to hurt my feelings. You know, there's no place I can go to run away from it. The only thing I can do is get rid of my buttons, you know? So let's do that. And one way to get rid of them is to realize how stupid they are. Yeah? Do you ever think about that? Some of these things that we are so ego-sensitive about are so stupid. Yet they seem dramatically important to us. One time I was in the process, I was editing a book for some people, and this whole mess happened. I mean, huge mess, with the publisher giving the manuscript out to some other people who didn't like the way I edited it because I left their names out, they said. And I just put in His Holiness Dalai Lama's comments, and, you know, so they were really wigged out about it. And then some people wanted me to rewrite it, and some people didn't want it to be published, and some people this and that. And I felt, you know, oh, I was just trying to do my best, and nobody understands me, everybody's against me. And I was so angry, I was furious, you know, at the publisher, at these other people. I was confused. What do I do now? This is going on for weeks and weeks. And during that time, I went to Dharamsala for His Holiness's spring teachings. And one day I was walking back at the end of the spring teachings. I was walking back to my room, and it hit me. You know, because you know how His Holiness always says there's 7 billion human beings on the planet? I thought, there's 7 billion human beings on this planet, and only one of them is really upset about this problem. Yeah. Only one of them that is really upset about this. All the other people, even the people who are involved in the situation, none of them are as upset about this thing as I am. And then I thought, I think I better drop it. Yeah? If I'm the only one saying it's, you know, a national catastrophe, maybe I exaggerated things. Yeah? And so putting things in that kind of perspective about, you know, what's happening for 7 billion human beings, let alone all the countless living beings in the universe, but just 7 billion human beings, putting that in perspective with what was happening for me, and realizing that's what's happening for me, I've just exaggerated way, way, way out of proportion. Yeah. Let's just put it down. Plug. Okay, so the meditation on impermanence is very profound for helping us really think about what's important in our life and doing what's important and not doing what isn't important. Yeah. And so, you know how we get so confused when we have to make a decision? Should I do this? Should I do that? If I do this, then maybe that. If I do that, maybe this. And our whole way, all this confusion about what decision to make is all based on how can I have the most pleasure? Isn't it? When we want to make a decision. If I do this, then that, what is going to work out most favorably for me? Versus if I do this and do that, is that going to be more favorable for me or less favorable? Will I have more pleasure or less pleasure, more happiness or less happiness. That's how we make decisions. What about if instead of using that as a criteria to make decisions, which is tremendously confusing because we don't know what's going to happen in the future, is if we use as the criteria for making decisions, since everything is changing moment by moment, and since the only thing that me is my karma and my mental habits, in which situation can I keep the best ethical conduct? Yeah, because my ethical conduct, that's the karma I'm creating. If I keep my precepts, I'll create a lot of good karma. If I break my precepts, I'm creating the cause of suffering. So which choice would put me in a situation where I can keep my precepts the best, where I can live most ethically? Which option will enable me to generate bodhicitta quicker? Yeah. Which option will help my compassion grow? And so using those kind of things as the criteria to make a decision. Yeah. Because it's much more reliable, because in any situation, yeah, even if we choose wrong, so to speak, you know, and actually we could keep our precepts better in this, but we chose that one. If keeping our precepts is the most important thing for us and having good ethical conduct, even if we're in that situation that isn't so advantageous, we still have the motivation to keep our precepts and act ethically. And that's possible in that situation. Okay? So we never really lose. Okay? So contemplating that everything is impermanent is so helpful for the mind. Yeah? All the anxiety, the worry about, you know, am I going to have the most happiness? Am I going to be famous? Am I going to be respected? Will I get credit and recognition for everything I do? All of that, in the face of death, seems stupid. Yeah? When you die, does it really matter whether you're famous or not? Yeah? A dying person who's famous and a dying person who's not famous, does it make any difference in their experience when they're dying? No. Yeah. Rich or poor, does it make any difference if you die with in a bed with parched white? No, starched white, you know, sheets, or you die, you know, does it make a difference? Yeah. Rich and poor, famous or not famous, you know, those things don't make a difference when you're dying. Because all your fame you leave behind here. None of it goes with you to the next life. What, you think you're going to get born? Yeah. And and when you come out of your mother's womb, they're going to say, oh, you be president. Yeah. Or, oh, you were the one who was the hero, or you were the one who was the fantastic artist. Yeah, that doesn't happen when we're born, you know. It doesn't matter. It matters what karma we created. Yeah. Because, you know, all of our trophies, all of our diplomas, you know how people write us on our birthday all the cards about I love you and you're so wonderful and you're such a good. All those cards will stay here. You know, all your love letters that you know, are stashing in some cabinet, you just clutter your house, that you never read but you can't throw away. Yeah. Are you ever going to go back and reread those love letters? You know, and all those cards and all that junk that we save that indicates that people care about us. Are we ever really going to go back and look at it? Oh, here's the movie ticket for my boyfriend when I was 17. I remember going to the movies with him. It was so wonderful. Oh, I wonder what happened to him all these years. Maybe I should go on Facebook and find I had a friend who did that actually. He looked up one of his old girlfriends from college and he went to visit her. He was all kind of, excited. And he rang the doorbell and this woman who weighed 250 pounds came to the door. Oh, it's nice to see you again. It's like, wow, she didn't look anything like she looked when she was 17. Yeah, he was shocked. Yeah. After my mom died, my dad looked up one of his old girlfriends. He was like, how old was he? 88? And he looks up his old girlfriend. And he was so surprised that she looked old. Because for all those years, he had this image of her being young. And she was still supposed to look like that. And she didn't. Huh? So the point is, when we die, none of that stuff goes with us. So, it's nice if we have it, but no need to get attached to it and cling to it. And if we don't have it, it's actually no big loss. Yeah, no reason to berate ourselves and lose our self-confidence and get jealous of other people. Because the most important thing is the karma we create, whether we transform our mind. That's the meaning of Dharma practice. And that's something that's done internally. You don't get any certificates for it. You don't get any trophies. You don't get any acknowledgement of, what you've done. Nothing. Yeah? When you keep your precepts, do you get some reward? No. Maybe a few people even criticize you. Yeah. But, that's what's really important to us. One time when I was traveling in China with some Chinese friends of mine, we weren't on a tour, because they were Chinese citizens, so we just went on the bus. And we stopped at this one chai store, and we were having tea. And there was a picture of the Gang of Four on the wall, And one of my friends looked at it, and he said, they're so famous here, and they're probably all in the hell realm right now. They probably were, with the amount of harm that they cause to living beings. Yeah, you could be very famous here, and you're in the hell realm. Okay, so, it's very, very good for meditating on death. So good for making the mind peaceful. Clarity is important and not important. Setting our minds straight so we can really practice in a pure way. Well, that was something about the first of the four. We haven't gotten very far, have we? Maybe I'm going to have to come back next year and finish that. Okay, so we have some time for questions, comments? Yeah.
I would think that it's considered grasping if one is disappointed for, let's say I got those roses. Their expectancy to be nice looking is a week. Tomorrow morning I wake up, they're all dead. Is that attachment for being disappointed in that? And that could become likewise a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That you have an expectation, and then, or if a young person dies.
Yeah. And you see how much we suffer when those things die or decay?
It's more so than when when it actually does, when you thought it was going to pass.
Yeah. But what's making it so painful is the expectation that it's going to last forever. Yeah. And then we're so shocked when it doesn't. So even though getting what we want and the attachment seems to make our hearts sing and everything's so wonderful, it's only temporary. And the more attached we are, the more disappointed we are. So again, when we stop the attachment and the expectations, it doesn't mean that we're cold and uninvolved. We still engage, but without all the stickiness. Yeah. I call it the bubblegum mind. Without the bubblegum mind. Other comments, questions? Yeah?
Yes. You said the only way to really free yourself from that suffering is, to get rid of your attachments.
Mm-hmm.
You almost said get rid of your feelings, but you didn't.
No.
And it would seem to me that if someone I loved, let's say was married to for many years, died, I would grieve.
Mm-hmm.
But are you saying don't make a life of the grief, or feel your feelings and move on?
Yeah, you feel your feelings, and you can recognize that some of my feelings may be, grief is simply getting used to a change that we didn't want.
Sure.
Yeah. So, okay, it's going to take me a while to get used to this change that I didn't want. And I feel what I feel. But I'm stuck longing for the past to come back, because the past can't come back. And actually, when we grieve, I think what we're doing is we're grieving for the future. Because the past is over. We can't get it back. The present is changing momentarily. The future is where we had the expectations. We had the plans, the expectations that the future was going to be like this. We were wrong. Okay. So we're grieving for what has not happened. When you think about that, we're grieving what has not happened. So, why should we grieve for what has not happened? Yeah?
It feels so real.
It feels so real because we have so much expectation, and we projected our mind into, and then this and that, and it's going to happen, that's going to happen. But in fact, none of it has happened. So we're grieving for something that has not existed, or does not exist, or will not exist. Yeah, when you think about it.
when I didn't expect to, or a friend when I didn't expect to. What has gotten me through that period is to allow myself to grieve as deeply as I need to, and then I really can move on. I also don't find that it is helpful to me to try to not feel.
Yeah, and I'm not saying don't feel.
Right, I'm just trying to figure out the balance between attachment and human feeling.
Yeah. The thing is, we feel what we feel, but a lot of what we feel is based on misconception. So if we can see things more realistically, what we feel is going to change. Because we often relate to our feelings as if they are givens, as if there's no possibility to feel anything else in this situation. And that's not true, because our feelings are produced by causes and conditions. They only exist because the causes and conditions for them to exist. If something changes, the feeling's going to change. Yeah. So we're not talking about stuffing our feelings or not feeling our feelings. We're talking about looking at life with a more realistic view. And then that automatically has an effect on what we feel. We don't have to do anything to our feelings. Okay, makes some sense?
It does.
Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Hi, thank you for coming to teach, first of all. And since no one was asking a question, I thought I would just ask one that's, I guess, maybe kind of a novice question, or just maybe not so informed about Buddhism. But when you were talking about, you know, if you're like a star football player in this life, you're not going to come out and be a star football player in your next life, right? Obviously, that makes some sense, right?
Yeah.
I was wondering how that reconciled with the common story I hear of the Dalai Lama now was somebody of significance in his previous life. And I hear this common thread throughout Buddhism that people are recognized as some other thing in a previous life that was of somebody of significance. And just kind of tailoring my question to my own personal view is, can you have different, I guess you can do anything you want, but are there people are there people within Buddhism that have varied views on reincarnation? I could be, for example, I'm solidly in that camp of reincarnation. I just don't know if I'm in touch with like the total connectors of one life to the next. I think it may take millions of years. I'm not exactly sure where I fit on the whole. He was this 6 months ago, now he's this type of thing. But anyway, just kind of like that concept of that.
Okay. Yeah, it isn't like there's a Buddhist catechism that everybody has to believe in order to be a full-fledged card-carrying Buddhist. You know, it's not like that. So it's like whatever makes sense to you, you know, you work with it. If something doesn't make sense, or it only makes a little bit of sense, you can put it on the back burner, come back to it after a while, think about it some more, you know, so there's no value judgment regarding that, you know. So for some people, the idea of reincarnation really clicks, or rebirth, actually, it clicks. For other people, the idea of rebirth doesn't click, you know, at this particular moment, but then, you know, we change. So that's not really so important. In terms of, you know, the thing of recognizing great masters, this is a Tibetan cultural thing. It doesn't happen in the other Buddhist traditions. Yeah, it's only Tibetan culture. And it's, when they identify, some, like in the case of the Dalai Lama, it's because the previous Dalai Lama had some high realizations, and because he was working for the sentient beings, at the time of death, he could guide his consciousness into where he was going to be reborn. He had some power to determine, the next life. And so, for that reason, because of that extraordinary power and his realizations, then they like to find those children and bring them up in a special situation. However, that does not mean that everybody who is recognized as an incarnate teacher actually is. Okay? So don't think that everybody who has the title Rinpoche or Tulku actually is, the continuity of a previous person. Because sometimes they make mistakes when they recognize people, and sometimes the person may be the future rebirth of a previous person, but they're identified because they have good karma, not necessarily because they have spiritual realizations. So what I'm saying is not everybody who has the title Rinpoche or Tulku is necessarily highly realized. Okay, some of them are, some of them aren't, they're at all different levels. But the thing is, it's not that, like in the case of the Dalai Lama, here's some concrete person was the 13th Dalai Lama, he died, went up out of that body, went into this body, and is the exact same person with the same personality. No, it's not like that. Because the consciousness is changing moment by moment by moment by moment, and there's no fixed personality. And from what I've heard about the personality of the 13th Dalai Lama, the personality of the 14th Dalai Lama is very different. Yeah? And yet, there's a continuity of the stream of consciousness between one birth and the next. Okay?
There were some parts of your answer that if you personally were to disagree with that this Dalai Lama was, and I don't even know why I'm even asking this question because it really doesn't matter.
That's
If you
fine.
personally would you be considered to be, would that be heresy?
No,
Right?
no. Everybody has all sorts of different opinions. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, there's no fixed catechism that you have to believe in, and if you don't believe in it, you get kicked out. There's nothing like that. Yeah. Yeah. Because everything is a process of development. We're all in the process of developing, and we don't all, believe the same things or understand the same things in the same way. And so there's got to be that allowance for human difference.
Yeah, my general sense of it at the moment, just anybody with a basic understanding of science, or in my case, having some understanding of physics or astronomy or cosmology, everything is going around in a circle. Everything is going and coming back. It would be really weird if we were the only thing in the world that was not circling. It's more bizarre to think that we don't come back mathematically. But how that happens is something that I haven't really, whether that takes 100,000 years or 1,000,000 years or 1,000,000,000 years, or whether we're part of something else, I haven't really and it's not something I'm really wrestling with. I'm just kind of letting it all flow,
Yeah,
like you said.
that's fine. That's fine.
But anyway, thank you for your time.
Sure. No, that's fine. Yeah, it's good you're thinking about these things. Okay, shall we sit quietly for a few minutes? Okay, so in this meditation, let's think about something we heard in the teachings tonight and apply it to our own lives. rejoice that we were able to spend the evening together this way. And think of the merit, the positive potential or positive energy we generated as a group and as individuals. And really rejoice in that. And then to dedicate it, to send it out into the universe, to give it away, so that it will ripen in the happiness and well-being of each and every living being. both in the present and in the future. Their short-term happiness and their long-term happiness. Both their happiness in cyclic existence and especially so that they may attain the bliss of nirvana, the bliss of full awakening. Due to this merit may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet form arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
All right, so what we need are the tallest people to come up first and get in the back. And then we work our way down from there until some of you end up sitting on the floor. Hopefully in not too uncomfortable a position.
I think you're in that category.
But I'm taking the photo, so I get out of said role. That's what we need, is Ian taking charge, like, get out of it. Yeah, I think actually we want the no light. I think it's too much, because you're gonna get blasted on this side. Everyone that was taken from the so those of you who are joining in, it's time to move to the front. And don't get and then as you move in, the